Good evening, everybody. It's 6:03 p.m. This is the regular business meeting of the Smithfield Township Board of Supervisors. Please join me in reciting. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Members present, including myself, Chair Jacob Pride, Vice Chair Robert Levenheim is with us via Zoom, Supervisor Michael Albert, Township Manager Julia Heilica, Conservation Recreation Director Dr. Alex Jackson, Engineer Melinda Hutchison, and Solicitor Ron Karasak is also present via Zoom. Announcements: there was a standing executive session this evening from 5 p.m. to 5:47 p.m. regarding litigation in the back nine and the Vecchio matters. The second announcement is there's just a typographical error. The zoning hearing board meeting was moved.
How do I turn the volume down? Okay, great.
$57.50. And the consideration to approve of $112,343.99. Do I hear, just to be clear, that's from the general fund, the escrow fund, and the capital improvement grant. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Albert, do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Levenheim, discussion.
Yeah, I got a few quick questions. ACR products, what's that one? You know, Julian?
Off the top of my head.
Okay, you look, and then Brown, they have Valley.
That's our insurance carrier.
Yeah.
Oh, that is our insurance, okay. The only other observation, I know I see a lot of 990 or 990. 1099 park staff, and I'm just, reiterating, highlighting what we talked about last year, which was hiring in-house some people to do that, which will hopefully bring these numbers down. I know we're bringing in a fair bit of funds, but it looks like it's probably at best a wash, if not worse. So that's my only comment. I know I've seen them there, they're all working, I know that's happening, we had talked about moving away from constables toward, or constable likes to other people, so hopefully we can get on that as soon as possible. And then my last quick, well, do you have an answer on the other one?
Yes, ACR products was for our DPW, they were purchasing 30-pound blocks for a project they were working on.
I
I believe this is related to the pipe repair on the road.
Okay, road repair.
Where it always kind of pools on the corner.
Okay, and then last one's the Wilmington Trust.
That is the insurance for our bond.
For a bond.
Yep.
Is that annual?
We pay an insurance payment every time thereabouts July, and then there is insurance and principal in January. So you'll see Wilmington Trust twice a year.
Okay.
Any others? All in favor?
Aye.
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 We'll proceed to the solicitor's report. Ron?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair. The last couple of weeks have been spent working on the Mountain Manor matter. In fact, today there were 2 oral depositions taken in that matter. Tomorrow, 2 oral depositions are scheduled. Monday, 2 additional oral depositions are scheduled. And I also need to complete the answers to the discovery requests that were made upon the township by Mountain Manor and the back 9. Other than that, I did review at the request of the chair, the Parks and Recreation rules and regulations update on a priority schedule so they could be discussed this evening. And other than that, that's about what's been happening over the last couple of weeks or so.
Michael, Robert, anything? Yes, Ron,
No.
okay. Engineers report, Ms.
Just that we've been busy with several reviews. 2 land development reviews went out today. Minor subdivision will go out tomorrow, and then we have 2 more land development reviews for the August.
You need to tell us what those are.
Yeah,
real quick.
so
The
Rock-
first ones.
Yeah, Rocco's Collision
Mhm.
and Verizon Magic Cauldron.
Right,
Yep, and then, we did a review for a minor subdivision, Monica, I'm not sure how to pronounce, Marson and Monica. And then, the other land development reviews are Water Gap Wellness and the Smithfield Sewer Authority.
Okay. Thank you. Julia, anything to note?
No report.
Awesome. Okay, Environmental Advisory Council, Alex or Pat, who wants to talk first? Awesome.
You have our annual report. Finally got that put together. And I must say, it felt pretty good after writing down everything that we had done. It was mainly a learning year for us. We had a lot of outside experts who came in and explained various issues that we needed to be aware of. We did deliver to you the report and also the environmental sort of, the purchase, the open space
Yeah,
listings, I'm sorry,
Okay.
I lost it. The open space listings and actually, Michael had encouraged us to have a criteria for looking at when space became available and if we had the funds. And so we did do that and we're waiting to hear, it's done and it just needs to be used if in fact we ever get to a point that we've got the money and there's available land for us to purchase. We've had our monthly meetings, of course. We're in the process of establishing a newsletter from the council. And we are trying to figure out, I know we gave you a draft and there was some concern about it was kind of too general and that we needed to be more specific about how we wanted interaction with citizens.
sure.
And so that's what we've been working on to figure out for our next newsletter, what would be a good approach to encourage interaction with the public, but on specific items.
Sure.
And we understand that's what you would prefer that we do also. You have any questions for me from the,
I guess just if you guys have already approved criteria, that ought to be used when deciding whether to
yeah,
procure.
you have it.
Yeah, it was at the couple meetings ago.
Okay, and that's, so that's formal, final.
Yeah,
Okay, good. As long as it's been submitted, I just want to make sure that
it's, yes.
Awesome. Thank you for all the work.
Well, it's been a great committee. I must say, I'm sad to say that one of our committee members resigned, but he's there in spirit, so we're happy about that. So yes, we're ready to go. Our main thrust this year is going to be more community involvement, trying to get more community involvement, but for your request on specific items.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay. Got nothing on I-8611. Michael, Robert, anything you guys want to highlight?
no comments from me today.
None.
Okay. Great. On old business, we had talked and granted some relief on land development regarding 361 East Brown Street LLC. And a lot of emails that went back and forth with additional information.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead, Mike.
mean, I asked to put this back on the agenda because we did get some additional information not exactly a full plan from the applicant seeking the waiver, as well as some feedback, some additional feedback from our zoning officer on, you know, why, where is it? It's right here. Why the permit hadn't just been issued, even though a building permit had been issued. And I guess the information that I got, I mean, I'm gonna read what from Matt. The total square footage of new construction is less than 5,000 square feet, which ordinarily would not require a formal drainage plan submission anyway. Which was the main thing that we were looking for, but if it's not required for that size of project, then I don't see why he should have to spend $15,000 to do it. And then and the applicant has said he does not plan on adding any additional parking because there's no additional staff, and that was the parking question. So, I wanted it to be up for discussion again, because I felt this was new information, that was relevant to our decision on whether we should, fully waive or not.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the land development for 361 Brown Street. Based on what Michael has just said, that it's less than 5,000 square feet and that it should be done to the plan exactly as approved by base engineering, and that was given the assumption that it would be approved for a building permit by our former zoning officer.
Okay. Well, got a motion from Mr. Levenheim. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Robert.
I do want to hear Missy's thought. I was just highlighting to Missy. This is the one where a building permit has already been issued. And it's just the zoning permit, which, because it is, even though it is a residential building, it is a commercial use and is in a commercial zone, or is it non-conforming in a residential?
It was non-conforming. They're seeking to essentially be.
To conform, right?
Yeah, I just wanna back up to the less than 5,000 square feet.
Yeah,
It's our opinion that it does exempt you from providing a plan, but you still have to comply with the stormwater ordinance.
okay,
A lot of times people suggest, oh, well, I'll just submit an as-built plan and show that it works. Well, we highly recommend that they provide all the information up front. So in case that as-built plan doesn't provide what's required, they don't have to go back in there.
I redo it.
So,
I would add that this is formally and still is a one-family residence, and the stormwater issues are not relevant to this because it is so small as it is. The addition will be so small that it's absurd to call this something that has to comply with stormwater issues when, like any other house, it has gutters, you know? I mean, nothing is changing here, and we're building, or the owner is building less than 5,000 square feet. What could you possibly think the stormwater implications are of this? I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah.
Processing.
I mean, my feeling is the same as I just said in this introduction. I mean, the only two things, I was willing to waive all land development, but I just was worried about stormwater. It sounds like a drainage plan wouldn't be needed anyway, which is essentially what I was looking for. So if under normal circumstances, one doesn't need that, then I don't need it anymore. And I don't think I need the parking if there's no intention of extra students, so.
Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, discussion on Parks and Recreation regulations update. Alex made changes per Ron's memo. We authorized the advertising of such, but I think we just wanted to go over a cursory look at that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, As you recall, at your last meeting, you had requested the solicitor to review the ordinance. That came back and, I've been working on implementing those changes. There's 11 text changes based on Ron's review. They're highlighted in the document in front of you. And so I think it'd be appropriate for the board to just go down the 11. Most of them are pretty quick. Other ones are a little more detailed. The first one is on page 2. And basically it's in regards to fees for the use of park facility. It now states that they may be established by resolution and then references the current township fee schedule. There's that sentence that says organizations granted permission to use the park facilities through formal agreement are subject to rules and regs. And then at the discretion of the board of supervisors, these fees may be waived for those organizations. So that's slight text changes, particularly in reference to the township fee schedule, which will probably have to be amended to indicate that some organizations are exempt from the entry fees that you approved. The next one is in references special event permits pursuant to chapter 13. That's for vehicles parked overnight, right? So, and then also Ron suggested adding overnight camping being prohibited unless otherwise authorized by a special use permit. The next one, we changed the word license to unregistered vehicles. So it says now it reads no unregistered vehicles are allowed in the township park areas. The next one, for sports field being assigned a group leader. This one we added, Ron wanted some additional information there. So we added, the information as to the group leaders be designated where applicable, be a special event permit or formal agreement. So if there's a formal agreement with a youth team, then in there, it would indicate, who the responsible, a coach or something like that.
I can tell you right now, that's gonna be almost impossible for ESYA or FC Pocono. Because unless the group leader is the person that's signing these contracts, but they tend to not be the people that are there on the field, it's coaches that are there. I don't think that's gonna be feasible for the
I
sports
don't think
team.
it's meant for the people individually administering the field. I think it's the point of contact, at least my interpretation was, with the organization. But
If you're right, it doesn't say they need to be. Sport group must be assigned a group leader when they're used by group. But information is to the group leaders to be designated where applicable by a special event permit or formal agreement. Okay, and it's not right now in any of the current agreements, but.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't think that it refers, at least my understanding, it doesn't refer to someone that's in charge of X field. It's like this group is responsible. And I know that in the agreements we're talking about, they're going to have the insurance and stuff. Maybe it could just be clearer.
Yeah. I guess it's not.
When we had people that have used the parks, like there are some smaller
It's
softball
definitely,
leagues.
yeah, it's definitely relevant when if we were to lease out for one day, you need to know
Yeah.
who's in charge. I get that.
I mean, Michael, do you want to just strike that new sentence?
No, I think it should just be sports field must be assigned a group leader when they're used by a group. The information is to the group leader to be designated where applicable by the special permit.
Typically, when the township gives groups permission to use the field, it's through just like a facilities rental agreement.
Yeah,
So
so
maybe,
there's someone's assigned already there. I mean, what it just means is we have to update the agreements, the drafts that have been sent out and add a provision saying the group leader is X. Which we can do, just prolong it. Well, actually, this won't be in place for a while, so we probably don't have to do
I
that.
think there's a way that you could.
It's fine. It's fine. I think it's fine.
okay. The next one then is no vehicles allowed the sports fields anytime.
Wait, I'm sorry, can I go back? Can it just say the information as to group leader shall be provided in writing?
Yeah.
Because that does all that, and as long as it's written down somewhere. That means after the fact, if we were to put a new contract for someone to use one of the fields, before this goes into place and then this goes into place, they can simply write a letter stating that
Yeah.
so-and-so is the group leader for their,
That's reasonable.
okay.
Perfect.
The next one is basically just a caveat for no vehicles unless they're granted a special event permit pursuant to chapter 13, basically.
Sorry, since we're going, sorry, real quick, since we're going thing by thing, I've already, on the first one, can we just remove the word certain? Okay, because
they
at the discretion of the board of supervisors, these fees may be waived saying certain organizations means they may be waived for some, but they may not be waived for others.
Mhm.
It sounds like, I don't know, that's illegal to speak. Ron?
I'm not
The word certain feels weird.
quite sure where you are.
The very top of page 2, last sentence, at the discretion of the board of supervisors, these fees may be waived for certain organizations. That would, to me, say there's certain organizations that it may not be waived for, but there's no description of who those are. It really should be at the discretion of the board of supervisors, fees may be waived for for organizations, full stop, no? Maybe I'm getting,
I don't know, I think certain means, like certain criteria, like nonprofits. But I don't know. if
but we
you're
haven't laid
right.
out the criteria.
My comment is that there should be specific criteria outlined as to what enable an organization to secure a fee waiver, or at least a reference to a resolution that has been adopted in which an application has been formulated and may be completed to the township for consideration.
And we're not making it for all nonprofits either, because a lot of our, I mean, you can't say you can use this forever and ever, amen. I mean, for all nonprofits, because there are costs associated with these fields. So
what I'm saying is that the certain organizations, I'm saying there has to be criteria so you know what organizations can or cannot get this waiver.
and this sentence is just saying that is at the discretion of the board of supervisors, and you're saying that shouldn't be the case, it should be specific criteria?
I think you should have specific criteria so someone can say, how do we know if we can qualify if we don't even have an idea of what the township is looking for? Again, that might make it a little more difficult, sometimes causes the tail to wag the dog, and I understand all of that, but I was asked to look at it with that eye of a lawyer, and that's what I've done.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference here, because it talks about fees, which may be adopted, which is the $10 a person now, but there's also fees in all the agreements. Those are different fees,
Yeah,
Right.
that replace those other fees.
When I talked to Alex about this briefly, because I wanted to formulate how we could, efficiently discuss this in the meeting, I didn't see this as referencing fees for parks admissions. I saw it as at least addressing park facilities fees for someone that privately wanted to rent a soccer field or the softball field like we've had in the past. Maybe there's a way to separate that, because I think that we already kind of made clear that these the organizations that have agreements with us, their affiliates are not subject to the admissions fees. I was thinking, people rent the pavilions, like if a church comes to rent the pavilion, they give us the security deposit, they don't actually have to, pay a fee for the pavilion. Things like that, that's what I saw that as addressing. I think we can distinguish there if we wanted to.
Let's move on, we can come back to it. Just, I think the wording is clunky.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alex, keep going.
okay. I think no vehicles, Ron wanted us to add of any type in there, which should probably be in there.
Wait,
but then
I'm sorry, can I just ask a quick question? As highlighted, is this with the changes
Yeah,
you've
all
made?
the highlighted is all the changes based on this memo.
Okay, good.
So basically,
Sorry, change.
Ron also wanted to add of any type in there for no vehicles, so that's not highlighted, but it should be in there. So it should say no vehicles of any type are allowed, blah, 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 or as otherwise granted a special event permit. Basically,
Okay, gotcha.
that allows for some flexibility there. So you would just add of any type in there for Ron's memo. The next one would be pets, just a little clarification so that it added that attended to the pet as well as the owner, which I think makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right.
The next one is adding smoking. I looked at a number of other ordinances and Ron had suggested some other stuff. However, smoking seems to be pretty universally not allowed and throughout various parks in Monroe County. So the word smoking and the consumption of alcohol beverages basically is now what that reads. And then the next one, the firecracker and fireworks regulation has been expanded. This, I believe, is copied directly from the East Stroudsburg Borough's provision on this one. So I thought theirs was a little more expansive to address some of the other possibilities that Ron highlighted in his memo. So hopefully that'll satisfy his concerns without having to list all the various weapons or anything like that. It just basically says anything that could cause annoyance or injury to any person or property.
Well, not anything. It says any fireworks or missile propelling instruments or explosives or dangerous articles.
Dangerous articles, yeah.
That's fine. I think it's good. I'm just.
Yeah.
The next one is basically just that if somebody happens to stumble upon an artifact, that the precise location of the find shall be promptly communicated to the township. There was also one deletion in there, if I recall correctly. Which is cute. Yeah, the word intentionally was deleted. The next one, I believe this is the second to last one, is that in addition to the penalties, there is a clause here that now says upon a formal determination of guilt through citation, court ruling, or other due process. That way it gives due process to the individual, which I think is important from a legal perspective. Then the last one is in the discrimination clause where sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression has been added to the list. There, Ron also asked whether or not LGBTQ.
And that's covered in that.
Okay. So those are the proposed changes. Michael, do you want to go back to that first paragraph, try to finalize
Sure.
that language?
Fees for the park, use of the park facilities may be established by resolution on the board of supervisors and are outlined in the current township fee schedule. And shall be outlined, well, I guess they already are. Organizations granted permission to use park facilities through formal agreement are subject to all applicable rules and regulations. Maybe that's where it should say, and any fee structure shall be specified therein.
Sense.
And then the next line can say, at the discretion of the board of supervisors, not these fees may be waived. But then you get to Ron's concern that what is that discretion? Who are we waiving fees for? And should there be a criteria?
Let's see if we can take a couple of comments and then we'll get back to
Okay.
that. Probably.
I was just gonna suggest maybe change the word certain for pre-approved.
Yeah, at the discretion of these fees may be waived for pre-approved organizations.
That way you're not trying any comment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely sounds better. I think the concern is
Yeah.
whether that addresses Ron's concern that it's too ambiguous as to who these supervisors, the supervisors, whether it's me or somebody else. You know, if it's their friend, can they let them waive a fee? I mean, I guess that's the idea, right? But then that's.
I mean, I think the underlying intent, like I said, when I'm,
Yeah, the intention was if there's a certain nonprofit that wants to go use it for an event like we had on the other day, there was no fee.
Right.
But I guess my other question is, if then don't you have a formal agreement where it's gonna be in place?
Like that requires special events permit?
A special events, or a formal agreement as in a contract, a lease, a use agreement. I mean, we now have a draft use agreement that can be used. And it can just be like, oh, you wanna use the space? Here's your use agreement, sign here. And it specifies out I mean, all those have to get approved by the board anyway.
Right.
Does that make sense, Ron?
It does. Again, all I'm saying is that we should probably just give some direction as to what organizations are permitted, 501c3, it's a charity, they're going to be doing a community event, etc. As opposed to the First Baptist Church Young Hitlers coming and wanting to burn flags in front of a church or something. So
Yeah, the challenge, of course, is that my concern is even if they are a 501c3 and doing all the great things, that doesn't, but they plan on using it, all of the fields 6 days a week, 6 months of the year, there's costs to the township associated with that. So we're not gonna waive all fees just because you're 501c3. So I just wanna make sure that is a discretion of Board of Supervisors, but it doesn't guarantee a waiver of fees. Does that make sense?
you can say that. You can say this is within the Township Board of Supervisors discretion, but it is no guarantee that a waiver would be granted.
I mean, I would personally be inclined to say, at the discretion of the Board of Supervisors, fees may be waived when a formal agreement is in place, because again, or something to that effect, because again, those formal agreements have to be voted on here anyway, they're still public and becomes a signed contract, right?
Yes.
Organizations granted permission to use park facilities through a formal agreement are subject to all applicable rules and regulations. What was the wording I said?
Fees may be waived when a formal agreement is in place.
No, I didn't say that. I said, my language was not that. It sounded better than that. I'm sure it did. I think it said, facilities through a formal agreement are subject to all applicable rules and regulations.
It ended with therein.
Yeah, I said therein. It sounded smart. I knew it sounded smart. And and fees, and any fee structure,
Right.
shall be incorporated therein or something to that effect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds a little bit better. You know the gist.
I think that makes sense.
But I think that covers it, Ron. And all that means is if you're gonna waive the fees, you have to have a formal agreement.
I believe that, again, we're dealing with park rules and regulations. Hopefully this will not be such an issue, but I think it's been talked about enough that you can make that change and we can move on.
I mean, basically it means if someone wants to be able to waive the fees, there has to be a formal contract between them, which is gonna mean a COI, which is gonna mean insurance, it's gonna mean it's discussed here in public. So I think, is that not enough?
No, that's good. I was gonna say, and like, hopefully, depending how long it takes to get through lighting, we can talk about a very real case of getting that done.
Okay,
Uh,
all right, well, this is an ordinance, right? Or is a,
no, it's an ordinance, so once Alex makes those changes, then be ready to advertise.
do we need to see it again, or can you make those changes and then? you
I'm
advertise?
comfortable with.
I have a
it.
question.
Okay.
I just want to be sure that in the waiving of all vehicles, that we have the covering ADA language that vehicles that are needed for reasonable accommodation would be accepted. Is there some overarching thing that says that about?
Oh, yeah, I mean, yes,
Well, that's a good question.
I don't know if that
I don't
needs
know.
to be here, but
I don't know any law, Ron, but are electronic motorized wheelchairs considered a vehicle?
Well, there are some that are considered vehicles, I
mean,
know that.
you
They're
could-
sold as vehicles.
you could essentially, I think, Alex, just to make it simpler, we can say, with the exception of, devices, as part of the ADA.
Yeah.
Cause I don't, technically, we wouldn't even be able to actually preclude it anyway. If it were that, but I definitely don't think anyone's gonna say, I'm not going to the park, cause you guys
Yeah.
are.
I just want to be sure that we're.
I think
I'm
it's
with
more
you.
about the implementation of it with staff to make sure they know when we say that, you're not, when it says that, it's not referring to that, because that's against the law to keep them from using it.
Yeah,
All right.
Sure, you're right.
but yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
And Jacob, one of the main benefits of, adopting this update is it now would allow the township to appoint Pennsylvania state constables, the zoning officer, township appointed hired security personnel or other authorized township personnel to start enforcing these and issuing citations.
Right.
Correct.
Which would be beneficial, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Your current ordinance doesn't have those provisions, so.
Right.
We have to make a motion to advertise, is that right?
We authorized advertising it last time. We thought there might be a couple less comments than there were, but.
Started and authorized?
Mhm.
Alright, well, I'll make those changes.
Okay. Perfect. Ron, thank you, and Alex, thank you for your work on that.
I don't think, sorry.
Alright, discuss lighting ordinance update, solicitor, our alternate solicitor, Bob Kidwell reviewed. The draft lighting ordinance in its entirety and wrote a memo on that, which I know Alex also has been working on. Alex, do you want to kind of highlight the gist of his memo in addition to what we need to kind of decide upon?
Yeah, I think the gist of the memo is from Attorney Kidwell on June 20th, 2025. It's a very thorough review of this lengthy ordinance. And the gist is the first section is addressing the legal question of the standalone ordinance. And basically, he sums it up that, he says, in my opinion, the township is in sound legal footing in adopting the ordinance as a separate chapter in the code of ordinances. The standalone structure provides flexibility in enforcement, avoids overburdening the saldo with post-development operational issues, and clearly communicates to the public and the applicants that the standards apply beyond the development approval process. As long as the cross references in the saldo and this zoning ordinance are maintained, as the draft currently provides, the ordinance will both be legally defensible and practically effective.
And Ron, I like, kind of interject, I did like Ron's comment last time, though, to go through the, I guess it's a little bit longer period of time that it has to be advertised if it was gonna be in zoning, is that correct?
Yeah.
So just in the case, if we give ourselves a longer period of time, so there's no question of, oh, well, you didn't do it for 3 weeks and.
Because it goes for the 30 days between both planning commissions, so they will both.
And then the planning commissions review it as well, that was the other point, so I think we should still do that. So I was worried about it as a standalone, Ron seems okay. Bob seems okay, so fine.
Yeah, I mean.
And Mr. Chairman, the alternate solicitor then went on to actually give us some fairly detailed comments on procedural due process and additional enforcement considerations. And after reviewing this and spending some time on it, it kind of breaks down to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 eight text edits on for section 32-1110. If you want to turn to that, you'll see what he's referencing. It's essentially the light control officer and some of the language in there with regards to establishing by resolution formal training protocols. Also, so, I didn't put these edits in your package because I just worked on them prior to your meeting.
Mhm.
However, I'm going to recommend that the board, most of what the attorney has suggested are fairly straightforward and weren't necessarily synthesized by myself. But for example, the light control officers should be appointed by resolution and or during the annual reorganization meeting to clarify how and when they're appointed. Also, light control officers must act under the discretion of the township code enforcement officer. Attorney Kidwell had recommended in 32-111 that notice language on notice, and he actually just wrote that language in there. I just inserted it into safety and welfare hazards, and then also nuisance, glare, and illumination levels. And then there's a section 1, 2, and 3. The third one now states some regulation or some criteria, I should say, on appeals and how all appeals or determinations are issued under this chapter shall be conducted in accordance with the practices and procedures. Again, that's pretty much straight from his memo here. The only thing that requires some deliberation by the board is if appropriate corrective action has not been effectuated, how many days once they get the written notification do they have until they become in violation of the ordinance. So they have 30 days to appeal it. Does the board want to set it as 30 days to correct the action? That's a discretionary call, a policy call on supervisors.
You know, I have no problem with that. The standard compliance period of 30 days that applies under zoning or other standard codes. Enforcement actions make sense to me, so I don't know why we would make it any longer unless.
I think the draft signage was longer, but I could be wrong. Remember?
I don't remember.
I think that makes sense,
Yeah.
because they might take some significant, I mean.
Well,
Just.
just to add it to this, in my experience, because I've tried to enforce these several times with different clients within the township, I think 30 days is reasonable. I really do.
But it's really 60, right? It's 30 days for the citation and 30 days for notice. Is that
Yeah,
right?
Notice would be certified mail to the owner at the last known address, so
30 days to
Right.
respond.
Right,
30 days of written, it says, it's as I,
it's 30 days from receipt, correct?
if you want to.
Yeah.
From receipts.
remember, in several cases, the owner is going to have to get an engineer, an electrical engineer to do this work and so forth. 30 days seems pretty reasonable.
The only other sentence that, now, if you read his final, let's see. He emphasized the importance of the training of the light control officers, and I added a sentence about how the supervisors may also establish by resolution from time to time a formal training protocol to ensure consistency and competency among designated light control officers, which gives the board the discretion to put something beyond what's written in this ordinance together and edit it from time to time based on what they find out in the field and based on this.
Can I just clarify, because the LCO, which was our way of basically being able to make different people able to go out and take these readings, right? We're gonna do the same thing for sound. Yes, we did, basically. Is it clear from this? I don't see this in this this document, but I don't have the actual ordinance in front of me. I just have the legal comments. But is the township's code enforcement officer also allowed to make that determination already? That doesn't have to be. He or she does not have to be deemed a light control officer
I think
as well, because they're already a code enforcement officer.
It states here that the code enforcement officer can train the LCOs and the LCOs can train other LCOs.
But I think it already says that because I read it.
I think by virtue of their office, they're able to, but maybe we
That
should
the
make
code enforcement officer or LCO is able to serve notice of violations. So they don't need to be an LCO as well. They're already allowed to do it. I think that's what I read here. I just want to make sure that's correct.
Yes,
Sounds good.
that makes sense to me. So this does have to go back, obviously, with
Yeah.
these changes to both planning commissions.
Do we want to make the changes, review it on when's our next meeting?
July 8th.
July 8th, and
Yeah,
then send it to the planning commissions at that time?
It's up to the board.
That sounds fine, yeah, it would be
I think-
good to have it
Yeah.
filed,
Thanks.
yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, and since those are the only changes, I can even just, rather than reprinting out the whole ordinance, I can just give you this section and fill in the page. Then the board can do final deliberation. It's up to you how you want to proceed.
I mean, it might be helpful just to have.
Just have the whole
You
thing.
want the whole
In front
final.
of us, yeah, cause I,
Gotcha.
the last couple times I haven't asked.
At
for
least
feedback,
email,
'cause-
it's in the packet.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
awesome. Okay.
Do we need to? Ask for comments,
I think it's time to-
discussion.
Anyone have anything to say?
Alright.
Alright, new business, consideration of the consent agenda, which includes the ratification of the agreement with the wetlands presence and for wetlands presence and absence with Pines Trail Environmental LLC for the engineer. And the consideration to authorize the advertisement of the self-storage facility ordinance as recommended by both county and township planning commission. Do I hear a motion on that?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim, do I hear a second?
Second,
Second, Mr. Albert, discussion.
do we have does the sheriff's, anything, Melissa?
Hello. I have a question.
Hang on 1 second, Joanne.
Okay,
Just to clarify, this is the wetlands here is for waterfront park.
Yeah.
For the NPDES, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make that clear.
And it was per comment we received from the county conservation district that required a wetland.
And where is that at?
Waterfront park.
Okay, that's down by you guys there, right? That's waterfront?
Yes.
Okay. A wetlands to be done there?
Or wetland study, right? To determine if there are wetlands.
Right.
So yeah, first they'll do a presence absence determination. If there are wetlands, then they'll go out and delineate that.
Right.
Okay, so I guess my question is, of course, with wetlands, is there something, like, what was it that you were requesting? Or just approving them to come and do the job?
We
Yeah, confirming the work to go and do the study to determine if there are wetlands there or not.
It's necessary for us to obtain our NPDES, which basically after the fact, we started the project with waterfront. They were like, oh yeah, we'd like you to do this now, right?
Yeah.
May I just make a comment? I don't think the environmental council knew anything about this unless I.
I mean, this is not within the environmental education program. This is purely just for the wetland delineate, not delineation.
Well, wetlands are kind of,
Well, right, but it's not within the educational purview. It's just this is a ministerial function.
okay, well, we do have some advisory responsibilities. on
Yeah,
this.
what he's saying is that EAC would not be the ones to determine whether or not there are wetlands there or not. That's the function of wetlands, and you have to have an engineer do that.
Okay. I just want to be sure, it would be nice to know that those things are happening,
Yeah, this is the first I've.
so we can have a back, if there is something.
No, I agree, but what I'm saying is it's not something that this is not an area of discretion, is what I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
This is required from DP.
I was gonna say the requirement became because of what you said, some activities you were doing there? Why did
No,
it come into play?
It's a proposed improvement to waterfront park. And as part of the review, they require a wetland study to be done.
Okay. I guess I'm still not clear. What is it that you said at the very beginning?
It's proposed improvements to waterfront park.
Okay, proposed improvements, okay. Oh my gosh, and so this company, I mean, how much do you think they're charging to get wetland delineations done? Thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars?
$4,000. It's the same thing. If you want to subdivide your property and someone says there's wetlands, you have to do this too.
I understand. I'm just thinking along the lines of other wetland delineation projects that also need to be addressed, and the thousands of dollars that, someone's going to have to expense to get wetlands done. So I was just, when I saw wetlands is why.
The private developer and not the township, so.
This is just
that's
'cause it's
why-
I understand, but that's another expense that, people need to be aware of, especially in like any kind of developers agreement. Is that still being worked on with, I mean, I know this isn't the time to ask, but I'll ask him another time, but.
Yes. We don't have any other update on that.
Developers agreement.
Any other questions?
Yes.
No, thank you.
Is this the phase 2 park of the waterfront? That you're gonna do the?
It's technically phase 2.
I think so. I'm not sure what the phases were. I wasn't involved at that time, so.
I was gonna say, this is,
This has been going on for
Right.
quite a
well,
while.
because this is after the dock.
Yes.
After those improvements, the
Mhm.
trail and stuff, after that was
Yeah.
This is not the blind trail.
Right.
After that.
After
So
that,
phase 3? The phase 2 is the blind trail.
Okay, so phase one was the fishing pier. Phase
Okay.
2 is the gazebo, phase 3 is the vision loss trail.
And is this for the vision loss trail?
Mm-mm.
No.
That's for the entire.
It's
For the
this is
entire
for the
trail.
it's
entire.
like the whole park has to
whole
have it, because we
NPDES
wanted to do
program.
it phased, and they didn't want, that was fine, but now they want the entire
want it
thing to
now.
be in the NPDES.
Right, you cannot do a phase project in an MPDS. permitted site, so you have to submit everything at one
We've already
time
done those.
to get approval. Yeah, you got erosion control approval for the vision loss trail
Uh-huh.
and for the dock and the gazebo, but you've exceeded your 1 acre of disturbance with those, so then that kicks you into your MPDF
Gotcha. That
permit.
It
makes
was a valiant fight not to, I remember.
There
but-
was, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright. Tim,
So it sounds like some work has already been done. Now, this may be a question for Missy. So if they determine that it's wetlands, do they have to rip out what they had already done?
They could, but there are no wetlands over the areas that have already been constructed.
Okay.
So is this like common that you have to go into a corrective action plan with an NPDES permit?
This is not a corrective action plan. This is a first
But
step of
they
getting
urge
MPDS
you
permit.
after you already started the
And
project.
just, so
No.
she just said, because the project is now more than an acre, what we've already done, that kicks you into now requiring this permit.
Okay,
we haven't,
I'm pretty familiar with it.
It's the first I've heard that too, but that's,
Yeah, no, I'm curious to see how long it takes you guys to get your NPDES permit as well.
hey,
I
why don't
already
we
see year and a half.
I have a question. Is this the front part that's supposed to have the statues?
The NPDES permit is for the entire wellness park. So that includes where the community garden is, where the fishing pier is, all of the soccer fields and the baseball fields. It encompasses the entire property.
Okay, but my question was the statues. Because the last time we had a conversation about the park, the front part, you had to put the walking, whatever, the stone area in, and then you were gonna put the statues in.
correct?
So what part does the statues go in now?
In the same,
The township is not proposing any development in any areas that NCCD is concerned with. There are wetlands.
they just want the delineation on the plan. That's what I understand.
yes.
But shouldn't that been done before you started the whole?
Nope,
process?
because when you start improvements that are not anticipated to eventually exceed your 1 acre, then you're not gonna be part of the NPDES program. So if the original improvements were a third of an acre, and then all of a sudden, which we did, we said, hey, we could do these other cool things. Then at that point, we've said, we're gonna do these other cool things, now we have to fulfill the NPDES requirements. So it's not corrective action, it's nothing beyond making sure that we have it for the future to make sure that we don't end up having to do any corrective action. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Only thing under new business is the discussion on the commercial use of the parks regarding Pocono Day Tripper. I know
Oh,
Alex.
wait, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay, alright, I know Alex had talked to, I think it was, what's your first name?
Peter.
Peter, okay, and we just had the discussion about, waiving different fees, and I think that. Peter provided some,
beta test.
I was gonna say, I think Peter provided some information to Alex about willing to,
You want me to give you an explanation of what I've been doing?
sure, that's fine.
Peter,
Okay.
before you start, can I get your last name, please?
Sure, it's Luck, L-U-C-K.
Thank you.
So my name is Peter Luck, I'm the owner of the Pocono Day Tripper, and I just started my 10th year, by the way, so. Been a challenge. So what happened, when you opened that park, I stumbled across it, I was like, wow, what a great thing to do on this historic tour. I work with the Wyndham timeshare, so this is just a Tuesday thing, okay, mostly. And I went and everybody loved it, because it's just a little 10-minute detour. We did a great job with that park. It's ADA compliant. I get a lot of elderly people that are here and they're just looking for something to do. They ride my trolley. Then we go down 611, down to Portland, we stop there, support that area. And so this started, and then one day, after Memorial Day, I showed up on a Saturday. And these guys approached me and they wanted everybody's ID and they were gonna charge everybody $10 a head. And I'm like, yo, I'm out of here, man. Sorry, I'm not doing this. And so I turned around and left, and I called this man here, Charlie, because he was involved with the guys, to say, what's going on? how can I get the use of this park without having to go through that problem? I'm a Monroe County resident, I'm a Monroe County business, so I'm trying to understand how this works. And if I can continue to do this, because I went today with 14 people, I was there for all of 11 minutes.
I was gonna say, based upon the time, and without speaking for my colleagues, I think based upon the time, that you're there, I don't mind, waiving you include the certificate of insurance and the security deposit, and obviously everyone that goes into the park agrees to the terms of use. I don't mind that, I think it's great. I don't know.
What would the security deposit be?
The email that Alex wrote to us said around $300. I don't know if you picked that number as a random number or if that was just.
And I think Peter and I had discussed that when we had met.
Is that like just an annual thing or? just-
It'd be returned.
Oh, it'll be returned.
Reimbursement.
Yeah, like,
Okay, so when I stopped, it would be perpetual, I give you $300 and as long as I'm going there, it
Yeah.
stays there, and then if I say, all right, I'm not gonna go there anymore.
correct.
It's back, okay, I'm
I don't-
agreeable.
I don't have a problem with that,
And
given.
then the COA, yeah, I could just give you a COA, co-insurance for my, I carry a $1 million general liability.
So I'll jump in, and Peter, I think you're doing, I like what you do, I mean, obviously, we know each other.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't think it should be completely waived, I mean, we added this fee, specifically, well, partially because we wanna make sure that our residents, not visitors, can sort of have first dibs, can have free access. And we also wanna make sure that, when visitors use these parks, sort of general wear and tear, is accounted for. Now, albeit when you bring 10 people on a bus, it's not the same as 3,000 coming on a Saturday and jumping in the pool and trashing the place, or jumping in the river, which was the main reason why we put this.
No,
in
I
place.
totally get where you.
Yeah, I just think for me, it's a slippery slope to, all right, what's gonna stop a busload of New Yorkers from coming and say, you gave it here, that's precedent. You've got free access, we're required to have free access, and then it blows up, and then there's 50 buses that show up. So it's nothing to do with you, it's about setting precedent, that I'm worried about setting precedent so that we might have a problem on our hands in the future.
Well, see, here's my thought to that. I won't go on the weekend. If that's an issue, I won't go on the weekend. But when I go on Tuesday, there's nobody there.
Yeah, that is true, our issues are on the weekend.
I think he's making a fair point, and I think given the side, hang on. We're gonna discussion. I think, that there's a fair point to. The outcome that you get with, a bus of folks that are leaving at the same time for a short period of time versus. A lot of people.
Can I suggest maybe an alternative? I know you're in the middle of your season, but. If this parks rules and regs goes forward, you're gonna have to, and if the document we just reviewed and sort of, it's not in place yet, but we seem to agree, you're gonna need a formal agreement. As opposed to just a waiver
Correct.
by this
Oh,
board.
understood.
So
Yeah.
may I recommend that a formal agreement be drafted? It includes a security deposit, it includes COI, and I'd like to have some sort of terms in there that if there's garbage left, that there are repercussions so that and if someone's coming in on a Tuesday and leaving the place spotless as it was used when it was found, and there's a security deposit. I mean, I agree. I don't think that's not the reason why we put a fees for these places, these parks. But I want it to be an agreement. We can discuss it here and vote on that agreement. Let's get a draft. I mean, I think we can do that pretty quickly. But I think already in here, it says that that's what we're gonna do in the future, if that ordinance goes forward. So let's do that into that.
Yeah, Trevor.
Before we see her hands up, pardon me, I don't wanna.
Yeah.
She had her hand up, pardon.
Perfect. I called and left Alex a message yesterday. I don't know if you shared it with anybody,
I did.
but there was about 20 to 30 people yesterday in the creek. And Park Service came about, I don't know, 4:30, 4 to 5 for all those people.
They were in the creek today too, by the way.
Yep, and
So
top of it,
did
the
not-
Right at
PSP,
the waterfall. I asked, so I asked them to step out so we can get some pictures.
But I'm
PSP,
not quite menacing.
yeah, well, PSP cleared them. Right after that, Alex spent a little bit of time there to make sure, so.
Well, I'm talking to Marshall's Park. They were in Florida.
Yeah, believe it.
I think we gotta differentiate between what the day tripper is doing here and what other people are doing here. And it seems like the day tripper is just taking people through for a look. And,
Correct.
you know, what Michael is proposing seems pretty adequate to
Well, the beauty of that-
police that.
The beauty of having a signed agreement as well is that it's effectively someone not only showing up, but signing, agreeing to all these terms.
Correct.
Oh, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is better than just a waiver and the idea that you're agreeing to them theoretically by walking in. It's actually a signature saying you've agreed.
Gotcha.
A few things, actually, one of the things, but it sounds like Peter's truth is gonna get addressed, is that, I thought when we first talked to him about it, so if you got a van coming up. And the driver of the van's from Monroe County, you check everybody else in the van, 8 or 10 people, make sure they're all Monroe County, or, how's that work? And is that what they're doing?
Yeah, generally they do,
Okay, all right, and then, the other thing I was,
unless it's like with an affiliated like soccer league or, the baseball league, like things like that, then if you're affiliated with that, then. You're
and
not
I'm also,
subject to.
I'm also one of Peter's tour guides, and I can tell you, if you're concerned about trash, we actually ask our guests to, any trash they have, put it in, if they carry trash bags on every vehicle. And when they come back, if they have anything, we also go into, when we're going down 611, not around here, down in the, what's that called, where the mountain, where shut down, where 611 was shut down. People would even trash everywhere, and we would actually go up the side of the road.
Right before the closure,
Yeah.
where the light is. I go in, I go in there, I'll stop, I pick up all the trash, put it on the trolley, and take it back.
I think having a concerned resident and a local business that is, making rounds, even though it's not your requirement to pick it up, I think that's just good. It means more eyes on our community parks. So again, I'm all in, I want you two guys to be able to go there.
Thank
I
you.
just think we need to make sure that we don't get in trouble by setting some precedent, somebody else that is not.
Like I said, I could be your beta test.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I don't wanna say I know, I'm assuming that situation happened last year that I called in about.
Yeah.
Down there at the thing that was part of the catalyst behind all this. And I gotta say, the action, the way it turned around so quickly to go from one weekend seeing people with tents in the middle of the water, and I went down there, took video of everything and the trash we picked up afterwards. And the swiftness that Smithfield Township reacted to that and addressed it and got under control was pretty impressive for, things didn't take that much time, like the next week.
Well, we know it's also not perfect and there's a lot of cases today. I mean, of course, we broke records today, the hottest day.
Right.
It's sort of inevitable it's gonna happen on a day like today, so we gotta get better. We also gotta make sure we keep our costs down, which was my first comment I made today. So, yeah, parks management is something that we need to continue to improve.
All right, well, I'm gonna disappear. Thank you very much for.
So can you expect,
Okay, just get in touch with Alex and he's got my email and send over your.
Send you a
agreement.
well, and by the way, we'll send you a draft, but then, and you can sign it, but the board won't be able to sign it until it's discussed.
Oh, understood.
Okay.
No problem. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And Michael, with this ordinance update, you've advertised, it's gonna help significantly with situations like the complaints we're hearing, because now you'll have the ability to appoint folks to enforce it, which may be significantly beneficial to the.
Yeah, they can issue a citation on the spot.
Right. Okay. Public comment. Any public comment?
Public comments?
I have a question for Missy.
Okay.
You said, you did some work with the Wellness Center? Was that for that rec building?
Yes, they resubmitted their plan for the rental.
Okay.
Based on initial comments you've made?
This will be our 4th review, so
Yeah.
based on numerous comments.
They paid an escrow though, right?
Yes. Miss, I don't think that we have your name if you want.
Oh, I'm Shakira Hatchet. May I bother you to spell that for me? I'm sorry.
First name, last name.
Last
It's
one.
SHAKEARRRA.
Got it, thank you.
That's the first name, right?
Yeah, that's the first name.
And your last name?
Last name is Hatchet, HATCHETT. Very long. I
That's
know.
a double letters there.
That's not bad, there's longer.
So I actually spoke with Robert a couple of times. He actually came by my house. I have an issue with my neighbor. His dogs have broken out a couple times. And he leaves them outside. I actually don't think he actually resides there. I think he may come back and visit here and there. He is a tenant, not an owner. We own our house. We don't have a fence at this time. We're trying to get the zoning correct before we get the fence put up. So you leave the dogs out, typically someone comes and lets them out about 5 in the morning and they can be out all night until midnight or sometimes just all day. It does not matter what the weather is. We have spoken, it's been about 2 years where I've been constant we've lived there for 3. The first year we kind of let it go, spoke to him as a neighbor, trying to be friendly. But now the dogs have broken out quite a bit. They actually broke a couple of house doors, like front doors, to get out of the house. And they now have started trying to break into our front door. They do chase the kids up and down the block when they were coming from the school bus. One of the neighbors actually got bit by one of the dogs. We can't have our toddler play outside because it's just not safe for us at this point.
Sure.
And again, like I said, all conditions, whether it's rain, sleet, snow, well, we had rain last week, they were out there all week. I've called a couple times, the police that came by, we got hit with trespassing. Just because they were on our property the whole time. We've spoken to the last person who was doing zoning, and I think Matt, is who's in there now.
Yes.
We were told by him that he has a long list of things to do. He's only there once a week. He'll eventually get to us. I think my problem is that at some point, this is gonna become more of a domestic situation than it needs to be, because as men, I have my husband and this is a man, it's becoming nasty, and I don't want to get physical at this point. So I'm trying to figure out what the best course of action is, because I've done everything from filling out the reports. I've spoken to, I think it's either Julia or Julie. Yeah, I've emailed you quite a bit. I've emailed almost anybody who will listen, and then when Robert came, he kind of got to see it firsthand, and then he went back to the last guy and said, no, this is out of control. And I got reprimanded at work because I was working from home. You can hear them in every room of our house, like, it's.
So there's a,
I was gonna say that part.
yeah, but the noise, so
We
the,
can talk about
there is
that.
the ordinance there is ordinance, in our township around barking of dogs
Oh,
for
I'm
certain periods of
familiar
time,
with it.
not just the noise ordinance. So the length of time that a dog is, I don't know, but I could just be wrong. If there's any other township rules besides that, like the dog
It
going on
doesn't
your
appear.
property is a trespassing,
Yeah.
state offense or, right,
Correct.
or not a township offense that we can enforce.
It doesn't appear to be. I know they said like 15 minutes at a clip is a problem.
Yeah,
And like you can't do it from a certain time to a certain time, but they're out there between 5:30 and 6 in the
Have
morning.
you talked to
Consistent.
the dog warden?
Oh, I've tried. We've done everything possible. Like I said, I have an email trail that is 2 years long.
Sure.
I have a friend who got bit last year really badly when he was on a run on sidewalk, and the dog's, he's filed all the complaints, done all the legal stuff, and the dog's still there. It's crazy.
Yeah,
He had his flesh ripped out of his.
And so my neighbor across the way was on the same page as I am, because they've broken out quite a bit. I have videos with them biting the fence out of the ground while the other one escapes underneath the fence. They're in cahoots with each other. It's amazing how they work, but I'm just more concerned. I'm mentally for my car with my toddler. I'm more concerned about our safety, my front door, if they break out again. It just becomes a hazard, especially because my husband works for the town. I just worry that, for starters, we don't get enough sleep.
at all. We don't typically get enough sleep. And then two, it just becomes where now neighbors are just constantly at odds with each other. And then I have my husband, we can't sit outside without them barking the entire time. The most he's done is like he's gotten shock collars, but again, he's barely home, so they're barely charged. It's just like.
There's other state rules about leaving your
Yeah.
dog out
I
as
forget
well.
the name of the.
They said as long as they have shelter and water, but here's the thing, they have the doghouse, yeah, they have the fence. Today, they've been out there since 5:30, they're still there, the water is boiling hot at this point, like, so.
Yeah, that's not
You
right.
have to think, well, at what point do we say he shouldn't have these dogs, because he's just a breeder, he doesn't own them as pets.
Oh my God.
He just breeds them, and we.
Is that the dog warden for those things?
Well, that's what I think.
Didn't Mario put some laws around
We
leaving your dog out? That was winter dog.
Since he's been there, he's had, I wanna say, and I'm being generous, he's probably had 20 plus puppies since we've been there. These dogs they're just pumping out puppies.
Is that becoming a commercial use that is?
Yeah, that's not a no impact home-based business. Could you-
That's another route. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking out loud, it's another route, because if it's a real business, I mean, no impact means there's no customers that go there, basically, and.
Right.
It might be a hard sell, honestly, to a judge, but.
So we had a court date maybe 2 weeks ago for the trespassing.
Oh.
He got hit with a citation, and then there was questions, and that was just citation for the trespassing. But then there was questions that, he did not have the proper clearances for the dogs.
Okay, so what you wanna do, I mean.
Cause it's not a kennel.
This is not an action of the board, but one of the things that I've learned here is. A citation happens once, you need to report it again as soon as it happens the second time. Because those citations get bigger and bigger, and then eventually they move up and then they do something about it.
He's been getting a citation since last year,
But has he gotten more than one citation?
yeah. With the last, zoning officer, he had maybe 2. And then he told me, if you make another complaint, then we'll have to go to court. I said, well, let's make another complaint,
Wait, citation by the township?
Yeah.
What was the?
I'm talking about the trespassing citation.
Oh, that was by, I think the state police did that.
What was the township citation on? Was
That
it with the
I'm not
nuisance
sure
barking? Because that's the only thing that we at present have the power to regulate.
That I'm not sure about, but it may have in the working, but I'm not 1,000%. Once I filled out the information, he just kind of said, okay, and I remember him coming, but he said he was gonna send him something by mail.
Right.
That's the only thing that I remember.
So maybe,
That starts with a warning, and then if it proceeds after that, then there's a citation file. That's the way the ordinance currently works.
Our
on
ordinance,
nuisance barking.
okay, well, maybe Julia I think it'd be worth highlighting to Matthew in case it wasn't clear to him, maybe it was, but just reiterating. That this individual has already received citations.
Definitely ongoing.
So which means he can just show up, confirm that it's happening.
Yeah.
And issue another citation, and if the citations have already happened, it increases the likelihood that it will get elevated downstairs. And then it can be not just here, but at county level. And then you'll have it at county level and state level, but I definitely recommend if they ever come on your property again, take a picture of them on property. And file trespassing again.
Right.
Because that will be, being honest, that will be your more effective way of making a change at the state level, but at the same time. Julia will talk to Matt as well.
Yeah, we've followed up with the dog warden so many times, just,
On this case,
yeah. We went back and forth with Monroe County, we bounced around to a couple of different people.
Yeah.
I'll touch base with Matt,
but maybe, I mean, just getting another citation, because then
Yeah.
at least it moves it up to the county level, so then. Cause the warden works with the county, right?
They would,
yes.
they would still file it.
I know they still file, but I just mean if if it's at county and they know the warden's been called a million times, it's just. It's just a way to make it move faster.
I guess what I'm saying is that it won't be filed in county court.
No, only if it gets above $5,000 citation, right?
It depends if it's criminal or civil, I don't know, I haven't read that statute.
Like register your dog at the county too and get a.
Yes.
Yes, you have to fill it out with the treasurer's office as the state agent for dog license.
$2 a year, I think.
That's it.
Is it?
That was nice.
I think it's more than that.
Oh, we're at 7?
But
I feel like I pay 7 a year for a little tag.
Too and see
not a
if
lot.
the dogs are registered.
It's something we can look at, but just to be clear, we won't be able to enforce.
We can't enforce it, that's the county that would enforce that.
State, well, yeah. We will absolutely.
Sorry to dealing with that, it sucks. I thought at first you might be talking about my dogs, because my dog climbs the bloody fence and he has a electric shock collar. He is a cute, cuddly, golden doodle, but.
See what's bad then.
I get calls, dog is out. That
Any other-
was mine.
Any other comments? Zach?
I was on the phone earlier, at the beginning of the meeting where I wasn't here, I heard something about possible with the, constable. You might have mentioned something with that.
No, I was just talking about, we have. This is not about the Smithfield Township Constable.
Okay.
But we have hired constables and similar at constable rates. To do the, I wanna say manning, that's not the right word. To be the gatekeepers at our parks. That's what I'm talking about, but
Okay.
not the individual that you're referring.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering, if there's been any progress on that, or if you guys. have
There's no
done-
progress for us to make on that person.
Well, I wanna say, one thing that I discovered too, the township has, whoever is elected as a constable. Has no obligation to use that constable for any purpose.
Correct.
And can actually choose to use constables from other townships.
Okay, well, I'm hoping that's something you guys are, very well considering.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I certainly have no control besides my vote on, and, you know, who's gonna get elected to that role, but regardless of who
Right.
gets elected. That doesn't mean that this township has to use the constable for any purpose.
Okay,
Right.
well, I hope you guys consider that route, cause seems pretty reasonable, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
We heard you last time, yeah.
Understood.
Alright, thank you.
Okay.
Do I hear any other? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. O'Bear, I'll second, all in favor?
I.
All right,
Adjourn.
see you, Robert.